Hello, welcome to Art in the Digital World. This is going to be a show that we're doing here at the studio about different artists who do different kinds of things involving art and computers, and some people who don't even use computers much, but mostly it's kind of about the modern technology and things like that with digital art. This week we have Kath Christensen, who is, from what I understand, a teacher at Columbia. And we're going to be asking her some questions about what she does there. Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for asking me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your history first.
Well, I've been a graphic designer for 30 years plus. That's been the duration of my professional career. I've been an educator, primarily at Columbia, since 2000. I began at Columbia College as an adjunct professor, and now I'm teaching full-time. My background in terms of education, my initial background was a Bachelor of Arts in psychology and art. Then I went on to do some illustration for a year in an illustration school, and then finally ended up at California Institute of the Arts, where I studied visual communication. And it was in 1981 that I found myself here in this area, and it was a bit of a shocking move from Los Angeles to this area, but somehow it all worked out. I met the people that I needed to meet. I was able to produce the art that I needed to produce, and ended up as an art educator and a digital art educator. This is good.
When did you start to make the transition from maybe traditional art to digital art? When did you start using those programs and teaching yourself some of that stuff?
So when I actually moved to Sonora. When I moved to Sonora in 1981, was just about at the cusp of the beginning of the computer age. My first computer was a Mac 512, the little box, and I thought it was dreadful. When I looked at it and looked at the typographical possibilities working on that Mac, I was just horrified. I had worked with amazing typographers in Southern California and saw the beauty of type, saw the beauty of image, and now I was expected to transition to this computer that I thought produced terrible quality work. So actually I fought it for a little bit, and then called and spoke to one of my mentors at Cal Arts, and he said, "Kath, this is the direction of the future. You've got to jump on board." So I did. I jumped on board, and then many of my clients began to ask for things digitally and photographically. Much of my work could no longer be produced in the traditional darkroom because the film became less and less available. So it just all pointed digitally, and gradually I became a part of the digital age.
Do you have maybe like a story of a project that you did that really made you kind of realize this digital art stuff actually has, works really well? It's a good tool to use? Or
do I have a story? Well, not a specific story, well, I can remember, this is kind of an interesting story. Of course, when I was first starting out working in the very early stages of Illustrator and Photoshop, etc., I was doing a lot of book cover design. So I'd be working away on the book covers, send my client a copy of the book cover, a hard copy, and then they would call me and say yay or nay, and I'd have to make the adjustments, and FedEx would be there in the morning ready to pick up the art, but often the slowness of the computers in producing the art was dreadful, and I'd make and of course the RAM on our computers was also minuscule. So I would make a move. I would create something, and then I would sleep in my chair while the computer did its work, and eventually that was for printing too. I'd set it to print, and I'd sleep in my chair most of the night, waking up if I needed to adjust it. So it was a very lengthy process in the beginning, and with each increment, the processors got better, the equipment got better, the applications got better, and always very pleasantly.
Now, can you tell me a little bit about the course that you teach, or what kinds of things do the students at Columbia go through for the graphic arts, or what courses maybe that you teach?
We have two certificates. We've got a graphic arts certificate, and we've got a web design certificate, and soon we will have a multimedia certificate. But the courses that I teach are primarily those in the Adobe suite. So I teach Photoshop, both beginning and advanced, and I teach Illustrator, beginning and advanced. I teach InDesign, both beginning and advanced, Flash animation, and soon to be Maya, which is 3D modeling, and Adobe Lightroom.
What kinds of maybe goals do the students try to come out of Columbia, the program in Columbia, with? Like, what do you think that their main thing when they come out, they graduate, and like, okay, I got this, and now I'm going to move on to this, you know?
In truth, I don't think students come to the college with goals. I think that they're kind of exploring when they come to Columbia College. So they're looking around to see what fits. Like I had a student last semester who was drawn to, was a math student, was drawn to animation. Took animation, found out it wasn't really his bailiwick, and ended up in Illustrator where he just exploded. So I think it's a time for looking around to see what fits, and trying things on to see if students are a match. When students come to the college, I think they, especially my younger students, are now, many of my younger students are very focused on game design. That's what they want to do. When they find out what it takes, they're not so sure. But in the time that I have with them, I try to foster the development of their critical thinking and their conceptual skills. I also try to foster, of course, the attainment of skills when working with the application, and nurture their creativity.
That was a big thing when I went to school, was about style. The teachers talked a lot about trying to develop your own style of things. What's your take on that?
So I wouldn't use the word style, but I do encourage students to give themselves a lot of possibilities to look and see how they can make image in a way that meets both their concept and their individual way of creating art. So maybe in a sense it is style. I'm not sure what else to say here about that.
Do you think that most of the students go to get the certificate and then go to another school, or do you think that some of them work right away, or?
Well, some students do once they've experimented with classes, they do begin to focus in on a certificate. Some aren't interested in a certificate at all. Some are just there to learn what they can learn, and then they're going to make other decisions to go on to a four-year school. Some are there just because they may have degrees. Like I had a student in my Flash animation class this last spring who had graduated from UC Santa Cruz. He had a degree in digital music, but he was interested in learning Flash. That's not unusual. I will often have students from other disciplines wanting to cross over and learn what they can in my classes.
Okay. Now, what kind of opportunities do you think that these students have? Obviously, like you're talking about, someone just wanted to learn something, but what kind of jobs can people do with a graphic artist
with a certificate?
Yeah.
Well, probably the certificate alone does not have that much meaning their work has the meaning. So it's like when I went for my master's. My mentor looked at me and said, you know, Kath, this master's is going to do you no good at all. What's going to work for you is your portfolio. So develop your portfolio, work as hard as you can, and take that to a potential employer. So in fact, that's what I tell my students: work like a dog, and take that body of work to a potential employer. And the certificate, fine, but better yet, a body of work to take. And so are there jobs out there for them? You know, this economy, of course, is one that is changing all the time, and currently is kind of in a little bit of a slump. But I will maintain that regardless of the economy, if a student is willing to work really, really, really hard, if they put their heart and soul and a lot of elbow grease into something, and they're really wanting to work collaboratively, then I think there's going to be a place for them.
I agree.
Yeah.
What about local opportunities? Do you think that there's some local opportunities in this area, Calaveras, Tuolumne, Amador kind of area? Or do you think everyone should just move to LA? No.
Well, you know, you don't have to be in a large city now to work. You just have to have connections. You have to be able to network. There are some businesses here that the college networks. We have an advisory meeting every year where we speak to businesses in the area, get their feedback as to what they're looking for. Within the computer science division at the college, not necessarily only my aspect of computer science, but so industry tells us, our local industry tells us what they need. Like, for example, in our last meeting, when we mentioned the multimedia grant that we have coming up and that we will soon be training students in Maya, this particular person from the industry was very interested to know that we would be training students in that area. So I can't point to any one business and say this business is going to employ students, but I think that there are probably connections that can be made, and you know, some students just take their brief experience into the Adobe Suite into traditional secretarial jobs, for example, where they're able to produce something for an employer.
What programs do you like to use personally? Like, is there any specific program that maybe is a great all-around you love to use? It's really fun. I know for me, I really love Photoshop. Photoshop is kind of my main thing. I use a lot of other programs like you, but Photoshop, I have a lot of fun using it. Do you have anything that you're close to with that?
Well, I like Photoshop also, but I also love all of the Adobe Suite. I love drawing in Illustrator. I love animating in Flash. I think if I have another life to come back, I'm coming back as an animator because animation holds great attraction for me. But I like InDesign. Since I've been a designer, I've done a lot of different collateral work through the years where I've used InDesign. I've also gone way back to PageMaker, and to create layouts for either books, posters, brochures, all kinds of collateral signage, so forth. Yeah.
Do you work on any projects of your own, any kind of fun art projects?
Right now I don't have, I wish I did. I look longingly at my drawing table to see, to think about where can I find time to work on my own projects. I do a small amount of freelance work. I think it's very important as an instructor that I keep involved in freelance work so that I stay relevant to students and not academic. So I still do a small amount of that, but it's definitely curtailed by my assignments at the college.
Well, I'm sure, like a lot of teachers, you probably get a lot of fulfillment out of teaching too.
I do like teaching very much. I really love seeing what happens with students, giving them the tools, showing them how they can put together pieces in different ways and create very unique imagery. Yes, it's very exciting.
And you said you started about 10 years ago or 11 years ago teaching?
I started teaching at the college in 2000. I knew that that was a potential for me. Now rolling back to when I got my master's, and the same mentor said to me, this piece of paper is not going to do you any good, with the exception of if at any time you decide you'd like to teach, this is going to help you. And so it was. It definitely did open the door for me.
And in the time that you've taught, have you noticed, or what kind of differences have you noticed with the people's styles, with the way that they're creating things? Obviously, the technology has improved, but is there any major changes that you've noticed in the past 10 years?
Generally, students come to me much more computer savvy. I very seldom now have students who, and occasionally I do actually. I have one or two students a semester who do not have any experience with a computer, which is always a disaster in the programs that I teach. But generally, over like 95% of the students are very computer savvy, and so they pick up on the nuances of the digital software really easily. And if I can, in the short time that I have with them, teach them how to work conceptually, make sure that their research for their projects is top-notch, and give them the tools that will help them be more creative, then I feel that I've made a real change in their lives. But the biggest, let me say, the students come to me much more computer savvy, but students still come to me, as they have even back in 2000, without critical thinking skills and without drawing skills. So if I had my druthers, I would bring a lot more art back into the schools so students could be drawing all the time. I encourage students, when they come to see me, to keep a journal so that they can put their thoughts and their drawings in the journal, so that they have a steady body of work that they're drawing upon. Yeah.
Do you think that we should look at digital art as different than traditional art? I mean, do you think that it's not really art because they're using computers, or?
No, I don't think it should be. It's only a different medium, so I don't think it should be looked at different. Art is dependent upon craft, it's dependent upon concept, and it's dependent on creativity. All three of those, if art is done well, are integrated in digital art. And digital art, as I teach it, involving those three things, has to affect the viewer in such a way where they are both intellectually and emotionally moved in some way, and digital art can do that well. So no, I don't think there's a difference. And you know, I'm currently working as a freelancer with an artist in Towne County who is taking his work that was created traditionally, drawing, painting, cutting tiles, beautiful pieces, photographing them, and now putting the pieces together very differently in Photoshop. Pieces that would not have been easy to combine in a traditional sense are getting combined in digitally and creating very new and exciting work for him.
Now, one of the things that's said in the video or video film industry is we'll fix it in post. And I was talking to someone about that. What do you think about that, especially with like Photoshop, and how because of all this amazing digital technology now, we can just, you know, fix something or just take a crappy picture and make it a lot better in Photoshop? Do you have any opinions of that kind of stuff, or?
I do have an opinion about that, and I think students coming into Photoshop need to know that if they're editing photos, they're there to use the Photoshop tools to edit what they've originally captured. If students are going out and shooting and they don't capture the high range of values in a particular image, Photoshop can't put them back. If an image is not focused, Photoshop can sharpen all it wants, but it can't refocus the image. If the image has a poor depth of field, The only way that that could be corrected in Photoshop is by bracketing, if a student didn't bracket so that they could combine the images in Photoshop, they would be out of luck. So I tell my students coming into my Photoshop classes, capture the best image possible. Learn about your camera, know your camera well, learn the basics of design, and then take those into creating the very best you can with your camera.
What do you think that the tool of the internet has played in digital art?
Well, witness David Hockney. I don't know if you're familiar with David Hockney, but he's a painter and is currently doing some amazing work. He's a traditional painter. He's currently doing some amazing work on his iPhone and his iPad. And he's liking the immediacy of creating the image and sending it out and getting the immediate feedback. So the internet certainly gives us that. It also gives me as a designer to design something, send it off to my colleagues and say, what do you think? And immediately get response back and be able to correct it. So the immediacy of the internet is great. The internet is also really good for research for my students. This last semester we took on a project in infographics, and they had to do a fair amount of research in order to pull this project off. So it was necessary that they search the internet really well. And I also teach a class called Internet Research. So students learn the tools of how to use Boolean searches, how to use the subject guides, etc., so that they can garner the most results the quickest way and get information that is directly related to the project that they're working on.
A common term in the internet and digital art is saturation of the market. Do you think that there's ways to overcome that and not be so worried about this oversaturation of the video or digital art market that has come about because of the internet?
You know, I haven't given a lot of thought to that. That may well be a concern. You know, I think if you're really good at your craft, you rise right out of that saturation. So perhaps that's somewhat Pollyannish, but I don't know. You know, I look to some of my mentors. April Greiman was one of my mentors, and I look at her work, and I can go to other sites for other artists on the net and look at her work, and she sings. Her work stands out immediately, rises above. Maya Lin, who is the designer of the Vietnam Memorial and of a lot of other 3-dimensional design. Go to her website and look at her website and look at how her work rises above. So if you're really good at your craft, forget about saturation.
And you can completely disagree with me, but part of it was, for me at least, was to not be so concerned with the fame and the glitz and glam and the money, and having an actual passion for it.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's like, go where your heart is. Yeah.
I think it's definitely, some people are really into it, and really that's what they want to do. And I always encourage people, if I see people who really take amazing pictures or drawings and everything. Earlier you talked about collaboration. Can you maybe expand about that, about what you think why collaboration is so important to create art in any sort of aspect?
Creating art in a vacuum by yourself is not very productive because you just draw on what you know. So if I bring you into my realm while I'm working on a piece, I'm saying, okay, Brandon, so this is what I'm thinking about. And now you get an opportunity to say, oh yeah, and doesn't that connect to this? And I say, yes, it does connect to that, but it also connects to this. And pretty soon, exponentially, the options for us have gotten a lot bigger. We've both thrown what we know into the pot, and we aren't just drawing upon what is first on our brains. So we get to look deeper. We get to make those very important connections. So collaboration is really vital. I especially promote it in my classes. It's hard with beginning students because beginning students tend to want to work by themselves. So my job as an educator is how to allow them that time to explore by themselves, but also to trust in the collaboration process to create something bigger and better than they could by themselves.
What about your thoughts on being able to take constructive criticism or critique each other?
Critiquing is a big part of especially my advanced illustrator program. And we do it very carefully without hopefully damaging somebody so that they won't want to critique. We ask questions like in the critique process, besides paying attention to the formalities of art, like line, shape, figure ground, hierarchy, we ask questions like, is there knowing in this piece? Do you learn something when you look at this piece? Is there feeling in this piece? Do you feel something when you're looking at this piece? So we ask those kind of open-ended questions, and then where students can chat about that, and that is then useful back to the creator. The creator can say, well, I heard you say that there wasn't as much feeling as I had intended to impart, so now I know that I have to go back and work on that. How then, the artist can say, how then might I go about doing that? Do you think that XYZ would work? And so forth, yes. So. Yeah,
that was a big thing when I went to school, being able to listen to it and listen to the different perspectives and learning so much from it.
Right.
We're almost out of time here, but I do have one last good final question, and that is, what do you think is the future of digital art? Where do you think it's going? Is there any kind of front that maybe is going to start to emerge?
Well, the immediate future is mobile. Everything is going mobile.
You're like the nth person to say that.
Yeah, right. So beyond that, what lies beyond? Gosh, I couldn't say what lies beyond that, Ben. But I mean, we have great programmers. We have great minds in technology. I went to Adobe conference about a month or 3 weeks ago, and so respect the software engineers that pull together amazing software for us. And you know, given our willingness and our ability to adapt, wow, no limits.
I agree. There's just so much out there, and with artists, that's what seems like their whole point is to try and create something new, to keep expanding and do something really interesting and come up with new things.
Yeah, right.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That was a wonderful interview. You touched on a lot of really wonderful things, and I think it's great that Columbia has a program like that out there for people to come and, whether it be just to test the waters or go on to move something somewhere else. You know, it's always wonderful to hear about local kind of art programs that people can go to. So
good.
Thank you again for coming on to our show. And that's going to be it for this episode. We will be coming back eventually with some more guests, some more artists and digital artists who can talk to us about their craft and their skills. Thank you. Have a great day.